Welcome to Breaking the Narrative, a Stand With Us Canada podcast. I'm your host, Jesse Primorano, and in each episode, we'll dive into the fight against anti-Semitism and the delegitimization of Israel. From student leaders to community advocates, we'll explore how people are standing up and making a difference. New episodes drop every other Thursday, so let's get into this week's conversation. Welcome back to another episode of Breaking the Narrative. I'm your host, Jesse Primorano, and today's episode is about visibility, identity, and what happens when anti-Semitism stops whispering and starts speaking loudly, plainly, and for all of us to hear. Our guest today is a Slovak-Canadian model, former Miss Slovakia, a political scientist, and a Jewish woman whose experience with anti-Semitism has recently become national headlines. We're glad today to be joined by Miriam Mattova, and as well by her attorney, Howard Levitt, senior partner at Levitt LLP. Thank you both so much for taking the time to be with us today. I'm sure it is just one stop on a very busy schedule for the two of you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us as well. It's important to speak about this topic.
It's my pleasure. And like you said, it's critical that we, share these stories. And unfortunately, what we're reading in the news doesn't always give the full picture, right? These short form pieces tend to give us the highlights and the summaries. But I think today we'll have a little bit more time to dive deeper into, your experiences and more importantly, what you've taken away and what you're trying to do as a result of everything that you've been through. I think for a lot of us, we're, sitting at home trying to figure out what we can do to stand up and speak up, and hearing stories like yours and more importantly your plans for what's next, I think can inspire a lot of people. So I'd love to start with your background, your journey, what brought you to this moment today. I think everyone's very familiar with the events of the last few weeks, months, but what brought you here? What's led you to this moment? I'd love to hear a bit about your journey, coming from Slovakia to Canada, your experience with the Miss Universe pageants. Feel free to start wherever you'd like and just tell us a bit about yourself.
So I worked in the modeling industry since I was like 14 years old, so it's been quite a journey. I've been on the covers of most of the magazines, Harper's Bazaar, Elle, Marie Claire, and it gave me a platform now to speak about anti-Semitism, which I'm very happy about because I never understood really what's my take in the modeling industry. But now I think that thanks to this, I can share a platform and I can help other people to be Jewish and proud, which I'm also Jewish and proud. So that is something that is very important to me. And my dad was Canadian, so I always had a home in Canada here, but I never lived here. And April 2023, I decided it's the time to move back to Canada.
And I know I've read other places where you've spoken about Canada and how much joy it brought you to move back here originally to come to this diverse, welcoming, kind country, a place that has a reputation for generations as being such a country. Has your experience, without diving too deep into it, would you say that that's been the experience that you've had ultimately in your 2+ years here?
When I moved here, yes. But after October 7th, everything has changed. I had multiple anti-Semitic incidents, which I was very disappointed because I always, exactly how you said, thought this is a very welcoming country, inclusive country. And the worst thing is that even when these anti-Semitic incidents happen, people do not stand up for what is right and for the right side of things. And that's why I decided to speak up. And all of these things are leading to hate online. And I've been getting a lot of death threats, and it's very upsetting because even though I went to the police station and reported the incident, the police told me that it's important for me to change my username or to change my life. But why should I change my life? I'm not doing anything wrong on the social media. So where should I stand in this situation? Should I be changing something or should the world be changing something?
Yeah, I mean, especially because it's not that you're not doing anything wrong. You're not doing anything at all. You're just existing, right? It's just you as a Jewish person that's inciting this type of hatred towards you.
Yes.
And I know you said that the dynamic in Toronto shifted after October 7th, but I'm curious also, you've had a wonderful career, and you've, I'm sure, met numbers of people that you've worked both with and worked for, right? Yes. Like even being in Miss Universe, there are moments where you're sort of told, I'm sure, by the organizers that they want you to say a certain thing, behave a certain way, whatever it might be. Were you ever told at any point in your career or in your time, you have a PhD in political science, when you were in academia, modeling, any of these fields but by the way, very impressive array of specialties. Has anyone told you or directed you to keep your support for Israel or your Jewish identity sort of on the side in order to, proceed further into your career?
Thank God in the academic field and my modeling field, never. I'm very thankful to all the fashion magazines. Le Official just did a big 8-page cover with me with a big interview about Israel's right to defend itself. And nobody has ever told me I cannot state that sentence, which was very important for me, because I believe that the world needs to know the truth. And that is what I stand for. Before all of these incidents happened around me, I was already speaking up against the anti-Semitism at the Miss Universe organization with Miss Israel Noah Kochva. We did a couple of videos on that. Yes, and it's very important to speak about these things because this lady that we talked about, and generally, she's a judge and she works with a lot of the national organizations. She's still working where she is. And it's very sad because even the current Miss Israel that went to the Miss Universe competition had issues regarding anti-Semitism. So it's very important to address these things. And what is very sad is that these things are not changing. Even this hate online. Instagram started, when, 12 years ago, I think it is?
Yeah, give or take.
Yes, and the terms and conditions that we're signing to when we make a profile are still the same. With technology developing, these things need to change. You know, even when you go to a bar, you need to show an ID. So what's the difference between creating an account and going to a bar? You still, in my opinion, need to show a verified ID to be ordered to go somewhere or to create a certain profile online.
I think that if you're going to give people an opportunity to express themselves in the way that they do online, there has to be some level of accountability. And I think that there's no surprise that when you go into the comment sections on your posts, on any other pro-Israel accounts post, the most vile comments are always left by people who have, you know, 0 posts, 0 followers, because they're the 6th, 7th, 8th account that people have created just to go and spread things that they would never say otherwise. And I'm sure it's even more so with you because people say things to us, to our students, because they know, you know, they can get away with saying things online they wouldn't say in person. But I think that, do you feel like that's actually like accentuated even more with public figures, celebrities, people that have some sort of like public status, that there's an even greater amount of vitriol that people are willing to say to them? You must receive some really horrible comments and threats.
Yes, it's not nice to deal with them, especially, as I said already before, I went to the police last week to report these incidents, and I got the response that I got. But not only that, but I found out that Meta has 30 days to get back to the police regarding the incidents. In 30 days, I don't want to be bad, but it could be too late. Look what happened in Sydney. These people needed to get radicalized somewhere, and that somewhere is online. So this online space needs to be changed. I don't know how it is from the lawyer's standpoint, if something could be done legally, or if the governments need to change. Maybe Howard can give us a little take on that. I don't know what's possible to be done.
Would love to hear that.
I'm a labor lawyer, not a IT lawyer, but I suspect it's just governmental action that's required. It has to be legislated.
Right. Well, the government was very quick to remove our ability to view news through social media, right? They said that there was some element to which it was, we were able to influence people through social media, and they removed now our ability to read news stories through social media. I should have actually researched more about this before we started talking about it because I don't know the details, but it feels like something very similar to that. If they're willing to take that step, then there must be a way to restrict users from joining without some way of identifying them.
Legislate whatever they wish within their domain, whether it's provincial or federal. This would be a federal issue, I would think, but under Section 91 of the British North America Act, putting my lawyer hat on, but they can do it. Is there a will? There should be a will. This is the time to strike right now when consciousness is heightened. Before people lull back into their normal passivity, now's the time to try and pass legislative changes. Unfortunately, you wrote to, even the opposition didn't get any response recently.
Yeah.
Let alone the government.
Right. And I think that's the part that's, the most concerning, is that you talk about maybe people falling back into a lull of passivity, but I don't know necessarily that things won't actually go the other way, where they just continue to escalate further, and the government has this responsibility to act now, like you said, before things get worse.
I didn't mean that. Sorry, I think we talked past each other there.
Okay.
I mean, people right now are very concerned. But when it continues to exacerbate, as you're describing, it's worse and worse and worse. I'm not sure people, at some point, they get inured to it, and therefore they're not as ready to strike. Right now, after Bondi in Australia, people are very concerned. But if it becomes normalized, they get less concerned. That's what I meant. Yeah. I'm not saying things are going to get better. They are going to get worse.
Yes, sorry. I definitely talked past each other a little bit there, and I didn't mean to say that I thought you were wrong, just more in the sense of it could go both ways, but neither option is good, is more what I was saying, right? And things have to change, because people like you, the comments that I read on your post are unbelievable. And this is the thing, right? You talked about it just now, like, and I'll just sort of connect the dots directly and say that people say these things online first, they see if they can get away with it, and then they turn it into action, and we've seen it happen
many times.
So what do you suggest? I mean, like, there's this idea of, creating, like verification ID.
Yes.
Is there anything else that's sort of on your radar right now as something that you're advocating for?
This is the main thing that I want to advocate for, because I think every social media account should be linked not only to an email, because now we can create 10-minute emails. We could have burner phones, right? So it's very easy to create an Instagram account. And then it's very hard for the police to track it. I spoke to police officers and they said it's nearly impossible to track these people.
Sure.
So somebody needs to take accountability. Who will it be? It needs to be the person that is doing it. And also we saw a great example in Australia, how they said that everybody under the age of 16 is not allowed to have a social media account. So yes, laws can be passed, governments can change things. How Howard said, there needs to be a will.
Right. And I think that's the biggest thing we're seeing right now, is that when it comes to, Jewish hate crimes, it's, we got to wait 30 days for Meta, and we have to wait. But the rest of the world has stopped when other communities have been under attack. We're the only ones, it seems like, well, there's always an acceptable reason to sort of push this down the road and let somebody else deal with it. Have you felt, I know there's obviously the situation with Uber that, everybody wants to hear about, and is not something that we're going to be able to dive into today, as I believe Howard can explain.
It's happily resolved.
Beautiful. Okay,
yes.
Well, that's a positive thing.
And that's all we can say. The terms are confidential, obviously.
But I think that's all we need to hear.
Yeah,
right.
Happily resolved.
I think
She's happy.
It's happily resolved.
Yes.
And that you're smiling right now as we talk about it, I think speaks volumes.
Mm-hmm.
The initial response that I was seeing, at least through the press from Uber, was, anyways, we won't go into it.
I think I can say one other thing about
Sure.
it. Uber advised me they met with all the major Jewish organizations, or have set those up, so they're acting responsibly, as well as resolving her situation.
Great. Because, I think that's what it's about, right? We can't just play whack-a-mole and fix one situation at a time. There has to be systemic change that's made. Are you able to talk about, as we're talking about changes that are required for social media, can we talk broadly about changes that might be required for something like ride sharing at large, or probably not, right?
Uber already has an agreement with all of its drivers that they can't discriminate.
Right.
So beyond that, what else can one do?
Are they required to have in-car cameras? Like, I know that a lot of Ubers I get into have cameras
I don't
inside.
know.
Yeah, because that'd be an interesting thing to think about as well, right? How do you create safe spaces for Jewish people? I think a lot of people are afraid to go to some of the spaces where they most felt comfortable before, particularly in the arts community, which is something I wanted to ask you is, how have your peers responded to this? Have you felt backlash? Have you been, isolated in any way from people or groups, or are you feeling support from the modeling community?
So the modeling community is great. I have to tell you, I'm doing a big cover story for Harper's Bazaar, which gave me a big platform as well. So the modeling community, the Jewish community, my lawyers, my team have been amazing. But then you get these hate messages, you know what I mean? So 1 in 5 messages is a hate message. And it's not only attacking me, it's attacking my family. And I'm like, how can we let this happen? And again, coming back to the thing, things need to change. Like, it's not about one thing. It's about open spaces in general. How you said, in cars there need to be cameras. We need to get verified IDs to be ordered to be online. I think these things need to be done. With the amount of hate, even after 9/11, the security at airports changed immediately. So now it's the time to make the change online, because things are developing. Same like with the incident on 9/11, things had to change, and this is a time where things have to change.
And I think the biggest thing to point out too is that, we always say that the Jews are the canary in the coal mine. This isn't just something we're doing to protect Jewish people. We're doing this, essentially we're doing this. We are agreeing, all of us, that this would be a positive change because it would protect all of society, right? This hate is not limited to Jewish people. There are, trans and LGBT, Q kids that are suffering, and adults too, and, all sorts of different race, colors, and creeds. But
even that, if you talk with the radical Islamists, they say first that it's the Saturday people, the Jews, then it's the Sunday people, the Christians. You're next in line.
That's it. And so radical Islamism, is something we talk about a lot, and it has become a topic that requires differentiation in many cases, right? Muslims from Islamists.
Although the Muslims have to be a little more outspoken against the Islamists.
I agree. I think
there's some that are, but just some.
You see a lot of Jewish people that speak openly critically of, members of Bibi's government and of certain parts of, of Israeli policy, and that's well and good because it helps to keep us in check. It's a true democracy.
And of course, there's the self-hating Jews that are that are vile and want to get credibility among those they think they should get credibility from while attacking their own viciously.
Well, I think in many cases it's that, and then also this idea that maybe they think that if they sacrifice themselves now, they might be saved later when when they come for the Jews. The good Jews will be left alone, but
didn't work for them in Germany.
Yeah, no, there's no such thing as good Jews and bad Jews in the eyes of our enemies, is for sure. So I want to just circle back to the threats. I want to just know how you're doing. Like the National Post article that I read this morning was really awful. Have those escalated in any way beyond the online space? How are you handling it? What have you done to sort of keep yourself balanced through all of this?
So thank God I have a great support system, which is also very important. But, as a woman, to be attacked is not easy. And usually the threats that come, what I see, are usually males. And it's very hard to see that a male would attack somebody that's weaker than them. They don't come against somebody that's the same level. And again, I have to circle back to the police. Like, I wish they could do more, but they're doing a lot, but they can't do more because it's the fault that they cannot locate these people. And circling back again to 9/11, things changed within hours after that attack on airports, train stations, everywhere. Why can't these things change within hours, even regarding hate online? You know what I mean? Look what's happening. It's not only me, it's in general. A lot of Jewish people are getting attacked. Even as you said, students, plain students, what did they do wrong? They're just going to school. Why should they be attacked for what they believe in? They didn't do anything wrong.
Or for their identity, not even what they believe in, for their identity.
Yeah, right. They don't there's no differentiation happening on campuses between Jews who support Israel and Jews who don't. They're just identifying Jews, period, and that's it, to our point before.
Yes.
But to your point, things have to change, of course, with the police. But what I'm wondering is, what hope do we have if you, somebody with a public profile that went through a very public incident, is still struggling to identify the perpetrators of? Someone said I'm sorry to repeat this, I'm sure it's traumatizing, but that they were going to slit your throat, or that the driver should have slit your throat. Like, these are, people think of death threats, I think, and they're abstract, but reading something like that is terrifying and has to be acted on by our judicial services. So I guess my fear is, if your case isn't making any headway, then what hope do the rest of us have? And what sort of takeaways, if any, do you have from this?
Well, she reported to the police, but they don't know who the perpetrator is.
Well, so that's what I'm saying.
That's the point. So that's what she's talking about. That's why she's advocating governmental change, legislation requiring people to have to be identified with any social media account so they can then arrest them.
So I wrote an open letter even to our politicians, some of them, and I never received a response. So I'm very hoping that they will look at this incident and make sure that there is a change. Because again, I don't want to say anything negative, but I think it's even too late at this point. As we can see, we had how many, 4 or 5 incidents against Jewish people this week? New York, Sydney, many more. How many more people need to die, innocent people, for there to become a change? Who's next? What's next? And I think it's better to prevent than to do something after it's too late.
Absolutely. And what about language in general? I think that a lot of the language we're seeing on social media, like, globalize the intifada, things like this, they also need to be policed. I mean, it's tricky. I mean, free speech is a cornerstone of our society, but so is hate speech, and policing hate speech, limiting hate speech, and incitement to violence. And I think these two things go hand in hand. It's tricky because so much of social media is it's like a manifestation of the internet at large, right? This notion of like sort of anonymity and freedom, and my fear would be that if this was implemented by the government, that there would be just a new platform that was created with like a different loophole for people to join. I don't know necessarily this fixes a problem, but the bigger problem, that people are as hateful as they are on this earth right now, I think is something that I'm not sure how we address. But I think that speaking out against it is the first step.
Speaking out against it is the first step, yes. Implementing this change, yes. And then again, if technology develops or something changes, the governments need to be hands-on to prepare and make that change very fast. What are they waiting for? I don't understand, what are they waiting for? Like, how many people need to die for them to create a change?
Well, I think the question is how many non-Jewish people need to die, right? I think that as long as it's Jews, there seems to be this ability to paint over it, to call it political violence, to connect it to Israel in some way, shape, or form. But the second that somebody, intifada is blowing up a bus, a pizza shop. These are the real examples of intifada that we've seen. When that happens in Canada, and it's not just Jews, but Canadians at large that are impacted, I think that's when we might see people, incite to change. And that's the sad part. That's the scary part.
That airplane was blown up of a bunch of, it was Ukrainians, I believe. East Indians. No one cared. No one cared because it was Indians. They were Indian Canadians, but I remember 10 or 15 years ago, the Lockerbie. No one cared. And now it's Jews. No one cared. So it has to be people that they can identify with directly. Could be me next. Then they'll start caring.
Well, I think identifying directly for sure, but also having some level of fear of the backlash,
That
right?
could happen to them.
That's what happened with the BLM movement in the US, right? Was that there was no choice. The government had no choice but to respond because they were destroying the country, right? And again, even that movement was hijacked by perverse and bad actors who in the end were not actually speaking for the cause. And the same thing is happening now with these, Free Palestine movement, is that ultimately its source is good. There are people who want freedom, peace, and self-determination for the Palestinian people. It's been hijacked by anti-Israel, anti-Semitic actors who seek to use the Palestinian struggles to demonize the Jews. So the reason I'm making...
It's all been financed from the beginning between mostly Qatar and somewhat Iran.
Exactly. And so I guess where I'm heading with this whole idea is that, we've got to... people need to understand that this is their issue too, that it's not just our issue.
I want to make another point. The government is not neutral. They're bad actors. The police are letting these hate rallies go on ubiquitously every day on the street, screaming anti-Semitic slogans, going to Jewish neighborhoods and doing nothing, giving them coffee one day, delivering coffee to them, but they're not stopping them now. We have a mayor who's on the other team, basically, who is very quiet about Bundy and about everything, very enemy of the Jewish people. Then we have the federal government that rewarded Hamas. Hamas actually thanked Carney for recognizing this non-existent Palestinian state. So what message is that sending to everybody? It's okay. It's okay to go after Jews.
Yeah, absolutely. Very well said, because I think you articulated what I was trying to say before and I failed to, which was basically that, the words online are now being heard on our streets, which is actively much easier to police than the online forum. And they're not even doing that. They're not arresting anybody with these signs, with calls to violence. They're not, like Bondi Beach. This was, I'm sure, I know how busy you two have been this week, but there was a video that came out yesterday from Bondi from like 2 weeks ago of a march where they were yelling "F the Jews." They were chanting "F the Jews, F the Jews," and then 2 weeks later, there's a terror attack against the Jews.
It's going on in Australia under this present Prime Minister Albanese all along for the last 2 years. It's been even worse than Canada, and Canada's been pretty bad.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to refocus on you and your journey, your experience. So what else are you is there anything else that the two of you are focusing on right now as you're trying to tell this story? I know we can't dive into the story itself, but the areas around it, things you're focusing on.
So I want to make sure that everybody knows that it's very important to still be Jewish and proud. That's a very important thing that I try to tell everybody in the media online, that I don't want to play a victim role. Even with these death threats, I'm not a victim here. I just want to speak up against something that needs to be done. And I want to show that I'm still loud and proud. I still wear my pin, I still wear my Stars of David, and I'm not going anywhere. Like, I'm not going to go hide. I'm not going to change my Instagram account. I'm not changing my number. Here I am, this is what I'm doing, and it's important to speak up. And I want all the young girls to do the same thing. I don't want them to be scared. I want them to be loud and proud, because what fuels hate is the fact that we are scared. That's what gives them power.
Absolutely.
And the fact that if we will stand up and show that we're not scared and we're here and we're not going anywhere and you're not going to get rid of us, well, basically, I don't want to say make them back down, because probably we're not going to see that happen, but maybe with the help of the government, we can make them back down. And again, with implementing these changes to social media, which is ground zero of hate, in my opinion, things can change, but they need to act now. Like, what are they waiting for? Like, how bad does this need to get, And even like yesterday, I was at the Hanukkah lighting of the candles. Like, there weren't enough policemen. Like, there should be. Like, when you see these protests happening, how many policemen are there? Hundreds? When there's a Jewish party or a celebration of some sort, how many? 2, 3, maybe 4? Why the difference? Why? I don't understand this.
So I think it goes back to the same idea that I was mentioning before, of just that there is one group that they're afraid of in terms of the backlash that they'll create if they don't do what they say. And one that they know is not only just physically small, but we're polite and we're quiet and diplomatic and not strong.
But afraid of what? You know what I mean? Like, you're afraid of your own people? Like, come on, like,
they're afraid of them. I totally agree.
This is terrible. Like, you cannot stand up for the right side of things just because you're scared of a different group. If you're scared of them, then take the precautions. The police should take the precautions in order for them not to be scared then.
Or take action against them to prevent these exact types of behaviors from taking place. But yes. I think it's actually even more nefarious than we're giving it credit for, because I think it's mostly about votes, right? I think it's mostly about...
I was going to throw that in.
Yeah, yes. It's mostly just about who's going to re-elect
2 million
them.
Muslim votes versus 250,000 Jewish votes, 8-1.
And not only that, but now the public sympathy that sides against the Jewish community, they're not gaining any brownie points with anyone but us if they speak up for the Jewish community. And so this is the challenge, right, is that we need to work with non-Jews as well, to be in touch with their politicians, to reach out to say, look, what I'm seeing is not okay, and your inaction is also not okay. Have you been in touch with any politicians? I know you said you wrote an open letter that wasn't responded to, but
I wrote two open letters about my incidents 2 weeks ago, and I never got a response, and it's been like 11 days, and I'm a little bit disappointed, even though I know that they're doing the right thing. I know that they're very busy, but I think this is a very important issue that they should be looking into, because I think things need to change.
I think you're giving them too much credit. They're not doing the right thing. They're doing the wrong thing. Repeatedly doing the wrong thing.
So when you say doing the wrong thing, what are they focusing on instead?
Well, recognizing a Palestinian state. Let's start with that. A direct reward. I mean, why? If it hadn't been for October 7th, that wouldn't have happened. And Hamas appreciated that and thanked Carney.
Doesn't it seem like this is like a perfect representation of the way people talk about the Canadian government right now? This idea that they are not protecting their own people, and they're too worried about virtue signaling to the rest of the world in the meantime, right? No. That they have people, citizens of Canada, being harassed, assaulted effectively in some ways by other citizens of this country, or maybe non-citizens, who knows? And they're more worried about what's going on overseas.
Trudeau is entirely performative, and Carney's no better.
Yeah, so it's funny. I think people thought they could re-elect the Liberals because Carney would be some sort of dramatic change from Trudeau, but it's been much of the same. And so what is...
And by the way, not just federally. I mean, Ford has been good provincially, but the municipal government's been terrible, and the police have been terrible.
Yeah, Ford has said some of the right things, but I actually appreciated... I was at the consulate the other night for a Hanukkah party, and there was a rabbi who gave the introductory remarks and the closing remarks, and Ford was the keynote speaker in the middle. And he said, Mr. Premier, thank you for everything that you've said and everything that you've done, but respectfully, we need to see more. And I was blown away. I was like, you know what? Because to this conversation, we don't have a history of speaking up for ourselves in the way that we need to, right? We do have a history of victimizing ourselves, like you said, and that victimization, I think, really leads us down the path of becoming victims, right? When we talk about how horrible and sad and this and that, we are now painting this picture that we're weak and that we can then be further taken. It's almost like when you're a kid and someone tells you how the best way to beat a bully is to ignore him, right?
This bad advice.
Well, no, but this is similar advice to what you were just saying, right? Is that when they're like, not ignore necessarily, but not to lean into the victim narrative. To say like, this has to change, but you didn't get to me. I'm doing just fine. I'm strong. I'm proud. I'm happy. But this behavior won't be tolerated.
Exactly. So that's every news outlet I go on. First thing I say, do not paint me as a victim. I'm not a victim. It's just important to address the current issue. The same thing with these hate online incidents. I'm not a victim. I'm not going to back down. I'm not changing my password, but something needs to be done. And the fact is, thanks to all the news outlets and all the push that I'm having, I think I can make a change, and I hope I will, because even Meta, they need to see this. Like, look at the technology, look at the hate that's online. What are they waiting for? And everybody's telling me that it would be very hard to link IDs to social media profiles. People can have problems with it. But I'm like, if you have a problem with linking your ID to your Instagram account, then you shouldn't even be on Instagram. You shouldn't be voicing your opinion. It's the same thing when you're at an ID and they want to see, when you're at a bar and they want to see your ID. If you don't want to show it, you're not going to get a drink.
Right.
Same thing. If you're scared to put that ID into the system and you're scared of being traced and tracked, then just don't have a social media platform. Nobody's telling you have to have one. It's your choice. And it's your choice what you write on that social media platform. And therefore, you need to make sure that the consequences are taken depending on what you write on there.
And also, at the end of the day, the people that are, registering these fake, Instagram accounts. They're bot. They're, what do they call them?
Bots.
They're not bots, but there's another word they call them. Like they're spam accounts or whatever. They're just fake accounts.
Yeah.
They're doing this because they want to participate in society, in this online society, by taking without giving, right? They say, well, I don't want my pictures. I don't want to have, my identity. I just want to see everything else. I want to see what everyone else is doing. And then seeing leads to commenting. And when you comment without an identity, all of a sudden those comments become very vile in many cases. So to me, it's not that hard to understand that if you're going to allow somebody to take from your community, you should expect them to give in the same way, right? You should not be allowed to have an account that says AB as the name and a black screen as the photo, right? We need to know who people are. And I think that there is, I'm sure, because I haven't created a social media account in a long time, I'm sure that they probably make you like verify your phone or your email, but what does that do? There's all sorts of, you can buy prepaid SIM cards or create a fake email address. There has to be a further step to securing these things.
Yeah, so there are 10-minute emails that you can create online for 10 minutes just to verify certain accounts, which is a total joke, or burner phones. Exactly how you said, buy a $10 SIM card, throw it out the next day. How many Instagram accounts can you create on these 10-minute emails? Hundreds, 200, 300?
So you're actually talking about something now that doesn't get talked about enough because we're so entrenched in this anti-Semitism and the day-to-day stuff, the violence, the vandalism, whatever else. But technology is pretty scary, right? AI is getting very concerning, but listen to what you're talking about. You're talking about, well, there's 10-minute emails you can set up, and there's burner phones, and there's... So what I'm hearing you say is that through time, and let's just say the 16 years since Instagram has been established, technology has continued to evolve, and our government has not even in a minor, teeny little way evolved their ability to protect its citizens from technology. People are creating all these tools to hide yourself online. Why? Why are you hiding yourself online? I've never once thought to hide my identity online. The only reason that you would have to do that is if you were doing something that you would be potentially charged with a crime for doing. They're propagating hate. And I think we've known this about social media platforms forever. I mean, Meta is like one of the biggest villains, I think, at this point for everyone, but our governments need to step forward.
But again, the police have tied hands. You know what I mean? Because everybody's blaming the police, even me. Everybody's telling me, why isn't the police doing anything?
What are they going to do?
But they cannot do anything. And that's what people need to understand. If Meta or the government doesn't allow for change to happen, the police are tied. We can go and complain about the police how much we want. Yes, there could be more policemen. There could be more things happening to protect the Jewish community. But regarding the online hate, their hands are tied. They are. I have to say that the police are reaching out to me constantly asking if I'm okay. I have to give them a big thank you for what they're doing, but they're telling me they would love to help me, but they can't.
Yeah, I actually will also agree with you that at least here in Toronto, the Toronto police have been outstanding, for the most part when called upon. They've done what they've needed to do.
I don't agree at all.
To protect us, to take care of us.
I don't agree at all.
No?
No. They should be arresting. They should be breaking down these hate
So that was where the next part of my sentence was taking care of us is one thing.
Yeah.
Being there for us, they're not doing anything to take care of the other side, to remove the threats. To arrest them.
To prevent the hate speech, like criminal charges. It's not happening.
No.
Just in the most egregious cases they're doing that. But generally speaking, these rallies should be shut down.
And the most disappointing part of this all is that there are Jewish pro-Israel members of our government who have the ability to affect real change in that space as it relates to arrests and
a few backbench MPs, not much power.
No, but there are. I don't want to get into. But there are other people. We could talk after the recording. I don't want to get into slandering anyone for our audience. But there's a couple of people who have real positions of power as it relates to our law and the implementation of our law that are Jewish and pro-Israel and are standing by. I'm not going to criticize them and call them out. But if they're listening,
they got to get the rest of their caucus on side.
Yeah,
they can't do it alone.
We'll talk more. There's one person who can do it alone, trust me, can do something alone, and it's not being done. But I
suspect I know who you're talking about. I disagree, but we'll talk after.
It's possible that you actually do know more than I do, and maybe I'm underinformed, but we'll see. Okay. For now, I guess that's something that I think we need to talk about is if this resulted in violence, right? If there was violence that took place, do you not think Meta and the police would find a way to figure out I don't think this would be our hands are tied in the way they're saying they are now, right? Do you know what I'm trying to say? I think that there's it's okay, it's just an Uber.
You mean physical violence?
Yeah, physical violence is what I mean, right? At that point, all of a sudden, I feel like they might find the ability to turn around evidence and to figure out names and, well, here's the phone number or the email and let's call that company and see, the IP address that registered that email. When I was in third grade, somebody hacked my email address and sent vile emails to my teachers, my parents, my sister, like really terrible stuff. This was in 2001, long time before technology was what it is now. My uncle, who's not a police or IT, tracked the info, found the IP address, figured out who it was 25 years ago with no resources. I don't believe these people when they say that, well, we can't really figure it out. I don't think they're trying hard enough. Do you feel like they're doing everything they can, the police?
That's exactly what I'm saying, that I'd rather talk about it now to prevent things getting worse before they actually do.
Yeah.
So that's why I chose to speak up about these things, because it's happening directly to me and it's affecting me, it's affecting my family, because they're also attacking my family, you know, and they have nothing to do with the incidents that happen around me. And again, the police hands are tied, but exactly how you said, yes, they can track them very fast, but the governments and the companies will need to take action, will need to work together in order to create this change. You know, exactly how you said, that was how many, 20 years ago, you know, it's 20 years ahead, it's 2025, and it takes them 2-3 months to get back on death threats. Like, are you kidding me? Like where are we living, you know? Do we need another Sydney or another 9/11 to happen for them to make a change? I hope not, you know?
But they're not even making change after Sydney, right? Like, I wouldn't expect significant change to be made. You know, like maybe this, if we push, like, you know, but I don't think that people are looking at this and saying, when I say people, I mean governments, are saying like, oh boy, radical change. We need to do something now to secure the Jewish community. I think they're doing damage control. I mean, like even Australia's government in their statement didn't mention anti-Semitism or Jews or Hanukkah or, you know, they're just trying to, I think, sweep it under the next news cycle.
Yeah, exactly how Howard said, you know, like, you know, look how many Muslims there are and look how many Jewish people there are, and exactly how you said, the voters win, you know, in this case. But on the other hand, you know, they're not only going against the Jewish people, they're going against a lot of other religions and cultures as well. And the fact is that maybe if it will happen to somebody else, will then they take action? Will that make a difference? You know, I don't want to talk about a lot of negative things because I'm a very positive person, and I still stand strong on being Jewish and loud and proud. But I have to say that actions need to be taken. Like, I feel endangered personally. That's why I went to the police. And I never thought I would have to do that. It wasn't the first time at a police station. And honestly, the 2 hours I was there, it wasn't a good feeling at all.
Of course.
To be honest. And I never thought I would be going through something like this. So, and I never want anybody else to go through something like this.
It's just it's disappointing, the world that we live in, that somebody goes through, like you were dropped off in the middle of downtown Toronto in the middle of the night on your own in a place, an area that, I mean, I'm not sure how familiar you're with. And the result is that you get death threats, right? Like that part we haven't even addressed yet, that you were victimized at first and are now receiving death threats as a result of being victimized, right? Like it's not that you would think in a proper society, it'd be the driver who kicked you out of the car that would be receiving death threats. You know, how dare you leave this young woman on the street in the middle of the night? But we live in this, like, you know, backward society. And I wouldn't mind pivoting a little bit just for a minute, because I'm curious to get your perspective. So you have a PhD in political science. Right now, we're living in a world where political science has been almost as relevant as ever before, because our whole society is operating with political motivation, effectively, right? More than ever before. Everything has become very divided, radicalized, polarizing, and it feels like all of our decisions are driven by politics. Specifically for the Jewish community, who our targeting and victimization has come mostly through a lens of false, fake social justice, right? That they are positioning themselves as virtuous by dehumanizing the Jews. First time ever that's been the case, that you can be the good ones by stepping down on the perceived bad ones.
First time ever it's happened through history.
To the Jews, you mean?
Yeah, to the Jews.
Yes, of course. I mean, the Jews have been persecuted through history, but what I mean more to say is, like, I think this social justice movement is, you know, relatively newer, as, you know, in terms of
this particular form of it, but it's been that through history. The people have been seen as part of the greater good by attacking the Jews throughout history.
Fair.
Whatever the form of anti-Semitism takes, it's always, we're the good people. We are the people who are standing for civil rights or social justice, and somehow the Jews are, whatever form anti-Semitism took at that particular historic era, are the bad people, and therefore we are made better by being anti-Semitic.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I guess this was the story of the Holocaust as well. You
Yes.
know? I guess I always imagine when I think about the Holocaust, I don't think of it as like social virtue signaling as much as I think of it as like
good proper Germans, good Germanic roots. I mean, there was the same. It just took a different form. But the Jews were the vermin, the evil, the people had to be cast out to create a more pure society.
So that's sort of where the differentiation is, I guess, in my mind. Not that you're right conceptually and theoretically, but I guess in my mind what I think is like the Jews were scapegoated and made to be, you know, like the vermin of society, to say they were the fault, they were the root behind all the problems that the Germans were experiencing at that time, right? That it was like they're bad and we need to get rid of them. Whereas the only difference I see now is that like people, when they vilify the Jews, they're made out to be like virtuous, wonderful people who are like speaking up for.
So are the Germans. Who are standing out against it. It's exactly the same thing. Yeah,
fair enough. My original question.
Sorry,
don't be
diverted you.
Do not be sorry. This is we're here just chatting, and I wish we could have like a 3-hour podcast, just you and I, where we debate things back and forth, because I think that'd be really fun. And not because we disagree.
Another day.
I think you and I are just both very semantical people, and we both tend to get into that, which I like and appreciate. But what I want to know from you is, like, you know, with your poli-sci background, is like when you see this dichotomy where, you know, Jews, victimization of Jews is seen as virtuous. How do you perceive that? Where does it come from? How do we stop it? What can we? How do we call it out?
I will turn your question a little bit by saying that everybody hides behind saying freedom of speech and privacy rights. Like that's the new norm. You know, nobody can talk about things, or everybody can talk about certain things. Everything is normalized. And I think this is the problem, that we don't put guidelines on what is right and what is wrong, you know, and where the barrier should stop, you know. And it's the same with all of this hate stuff, like even outside in the protest or online, you know what I mean? Everybody calls it freedom of speech, and everybody hides behind privacy rights. What privacy rights? What freedom of speech? How bad does it have to get for them to create boundaries and laws and regulations to stop these things?
Well, freedom of speech only applies to the other side because they've decided that they've won the moral war. Like they have this moral victory where they can say whatever they want, but we're not allowed to, right? Like if you talk about Islamism, you're called Islamophobic. When you're not talking about Islam, you're talking about Islamism. There are two distinct things, but they've managed to, I don't want to say like trick the world, but they've created a situation now where when you criticize one, they just call you a bigot towards the other. You're not allowed to criticize that. That's where their freedom of speech ends. But
Correct.
for us,
anti-Palestinian racism is now defined broadly to include any Zionism. It's also inherently anti-Palestinian racism.
Wearing a Magen David could theoretically, according to certain definitions of anti-Palestinian racism, just wearing a Magen David necklace could be Islamophobic or anti-Palestinian racism.
Yes.
That's a Jewish symbol, you know, like this is the world we've slipped into. And this is the part that I think is the most concerning, is that this language was drafted intentionally as a way of saying, like, all right, how do we make sure the Jewish experience is minimized? Okay, so it's not about protecting Palestinians, it's about preventing Jews from living Jewishly, right?
Yes.
From wearing the Magen David, from talking about Israel. It's so clear the whole thing is a defense from implementing the IRA definition of anti-Semitism, right? APR directly contradicts IRA, which limits our ability to define what we perceive as anti-Semitism, which goes back to your point from before about the importance.
What's recognized internationally as anti-Semitism,
right.
not just our Jewish definition.
Right. Internationally, you know, and even here in Canada, provincially, federally, right? Like nobody enforces it though. You know, that's the secret we're not mentioning here, is that the governments aren't enforcing it. So all this to say that, you know, this coded language is, you know, painted as, you know, as virtuous, but in reality it's hateful. And I guess my question for you, you know, have you seen this, like, could you have seen this coming? Like with your background in poli-sci, like does this make sense to you, what you're seeing? Like how do we, I guess it's not a very clear question. I apologize. It
actually quite is, because I would say that pre-October 7th, I would have never seen this coming. Post-October 7th, yes. In my opinion, it was a matter of time. I didn't know how long it would take to get as bad as it is now. And in my opinion, it went much faster than I thought it would be. Because I want to circle back to Second World War. Hitler started gaining power 10 years before actually Second World War happened. Is this the 10 years before something bad is going to happen? You know, and this is the question. And that's what I'm saying. We need to prevent and stop things now before it gets too bad. It's been almost 3 years after October 7th, and it's getting worse and worse and worse. Like, when do laws and regulations need to change for people to get a stop sign by saying, this is enough? You know, like how far does this have to go? You know, again, before technology, it took Hitler 10 years. With technology, look how fast it's going. You know, and how fast this anti-Semitism is spreading. You know, and that again circles back to politicians. Please take action. You know, please do something, you know. Yes, I get death threats online. How bad does it have to get for them to actually do something? You know, like I live alone in this country. My family's back in Europe. I don't have somebody to protect me. I'm leaning onto the government and to the police to protect me as a Canadian citizen. I need to have those rights to feel safe. You know, why do we protect the ones that attack, not the ones that feel threatened? But again, I don't want to portray myself as a victim, but
it's not portraying yourself as a victim. It's just talking about the reasonable expectations we should have of each other as folks who share a civilization, whether it's a city, a town, a country, a continent. Like, we shouldn't be in the situation we are where people are talking about leaving Toronto, right?
Yes.
So many people that I know, I'm sure both of you too, have already moved to the States, have moved to Israel, have moved to wherever they've gone because they do not feel like their government can protect them here.
Yes.
And that's the thing is when you talk about this and you're like, well, they have Meta has 30 days and the police can't do this. It's not an unwillingness to protect, which it might be, but it's not just an unwillingness to protect. It's an inability. And I think that's even more concerning.
I don't agree with that at all.
No?
They have the
Bring
ability.
it on.
No, they have the ability. Of course, they can pass laws. They can pass the kind of laws Miriam's talking about. They can enforce the existing laws. It's an unwillingness. It's not an inability. It's entirely unwillingness.
Look at Australia and their policy regarding 16-year-olds and under. They passed that law very, very fast.
Yeah, but we just had a massacre in Australia, right? If we're talking about like effect, if it's working or not working, like I just don't know that.
I'm just talking about like passing policies. Like if they want something done, they can get it done fast.
We're actually in agreement in a different way. They are currently unable to. They could shift circumstances and create policy to facilitate their enablement. Right now, the tools aren't in place.
The police are in a position to enforce hate crime laws, and they're not doing it. They're in a position to arrest, but they're not doing it. Now, I think they're not doing it because the mayor's not letting them in Toronto, but the laws exist right now. Not the laws that Miriam's talking about, that's more advanced, but the laws that exist aren't being enforced, aren't being utilized. That's the biggest crime.
And
but again, sorry to jump in, but if they arrest, they get out on bail within 24 hours or 48 hours. Yeah. So that's another issue that, okay, they make these arrests and then they get let out on bail. Like, what does this serve, or who does this serve? You know, nobody. It just basically laughs in our faces, you know, and the police faces. So they're doing work that is actually not even needed because they know that they'll be out within 48 hours or 24 hours.
If that. And they also know that they have endless amounts of charitable funds that have been donated to support their legal efforts, right? Like if they need a lawyer, they have a lawyer ready to roll immediately, you know, and, you know, thankfully we've got wonderful people like Howard who have, you know, taken on cases like yours to help and support the community. But it's heartbreaking to listen to because, you know, your situation is representative of, I think, what the rest of the Jewish community is feeling, but doesn't have the platform to talk about and to share and to amplify the way that you do. And to me, there's a moment here and an opportunity to say, all right, you know what, Miriam, you've now become like a beacon for our community to say, like, the problems and what you're experiencing, we all are too.
Yes.
Now somebody has to be the one to bring this to the forefront, to say that it's not okay and to try and drive change.
Yes.
But now you can't do that by yourself. I mean, you've got Howard, who's a superhero from my short time knowing you. But it has to be a community effort, right?
Yes.
And I think it kind of comes back to what we were saying before of like this notion that, well, if the government is so concerned about our opposition because they are so strong in numbers, then the greatest way to fight that is to make them concerned about us as well. Now, I don't mean by destroying buildings and the city at large, but I mean by raising our voices and by speaking up. And like you said, not painting ourselves as victims, but as participating members of Canadian society that expect to be treated as equals.
But not only that, it's important to show them that there is ways how to solve this issue. You know, okay, we're complaining about it, so give us a solution. I'm giving you a solution. Okay, so let's try to implement it. How can we implement it? You know what I mean? Let's just have that discussion. Let's start somewhere. But them not even having that discussion, it's very hard for implementing change. And again, it's very important for the community to hold together and to reshare and to talk about this, because I don't want this to go away in 2-3 days. You know, it's important to keep this topic open and to make sure that it gets to the places that it should get to. And that's to our government and to the big companies like Instagram, Twitter, X, and et cetera, you know? Because these are the people that can make a change. And we are the ones that can help it to make a change. So resharing, talking about it, bringing it to the right places, giving it attention, this is the most important thing now. And this is what I did with my platform. I'm bringing it attention because this needs attention. Exactly how you said. I'm not the only one dealing with this. This is, I don't know, 70% of the Jewish population, maybe even more, unfortunately.
Well, if it's only 70, it's only because the other, 30, which is too high. But the only people that aren't experiencing it are the ones who have shifted their entire identity and who walk around in keffiyehs and do things to basically signal to the community that I'm one of the good ones. Leave me alone for now until you're done with all them. Leave me alone. And that's the ultimate truth, is that it doesn't stop for anybody.
And I want to tell everybody, it's very important that I want everybody to still wear their Star of David, wear your kippas, be proud, be Jewish. I met Elisha Rabbi, and this is one thing he told me. And this is something that I tell everybody from today, that wear your Stars of David, wear your kippas, be loud and proud. Because that's the most important thing nowadays, to not hide your identity, exactly how you said, to show your menorahs and to show that we're celebrating this Jewish holiday.
And I think that people don't talk about it enough, but in many cases, that's how we can eradicate anti-Semitism the best, is just by showing our Judaism to the world in two ways. One, to show them that we're not afraid, that we're not being pushed into a corner by them. But two, I think there's a lot of people in this world who just don't know. They don't know a Jew. They've never met a Jew before, right? Never been to a Shabbat or a Hanukkah. They've never seen, right? And so sometimes when stories like yours come to light, it isn't just about highlighting the systemic problems that exist with preventing hate crimes against the Jewish community, but it's also about, well, now this person might read, okay, it's Hanukkah. It mentioned Hanukkah in the article. It gives some nuance to what being Jewish means. But
not only that, but a couple of interviews I did with fashion magazines, they asked me, what's it like to be a Jewish woman? You know what I mean? And the traditions we have to bake the challah, to be with the families on Fridays. These are very important things and very important values for people to have in general. Family should be the key and should be the key to happiness, to everybody's happiness.
Yes.
And I don't want that to be taken away from us.
It's a really beautiful sentiment. It's true. It should be the key to everyone's happiness. And I think that more than that, we should be able to spend our time talking about happier subjects than this. There's so much wrong with the world today that we'd be much better off if we could just find ways to coexist. If only somebody wanted to coexist with us.
Do you get attacked?
Do I get attacked?
Do you get attacked?
Online or in person?
Online.
Yeah.
Or in person.
Absolutely. Online, not in person, thank God.
I don't. And I've been very strident on this subject ever since October 7th. I've written columns at the Post about this subject. And I guess it's because I thought it's because I have a platform. So people are afraid of me, that I'm a lawyer and can sue and take legal action.
Right.
And I've been around a while, so people know that I'm competent to attack and hurt enemies who have crossed certain lines. So it's interesting that you get attacked because you have a platform too. Are
you on social media?
No, but I have a place in social media. I never see myself. I'm not active in social media.
Right. So you're one of those guys. No, I'm just kidding. It's
I have accounts, but I'm not active.
You're not active. Yeah, and that's the thing. I think that most people, the digital hate that we see these days is mostly on social media,
I get comments to my columns in the Post under, as you got hundreds.
Yeah,
I think more than I've ever got.
Comments, yeah.
But that's the thing, is people.
But I don't get attacked in really in the comments either, and certainly not the way she has been, ever.
Yeah, because
the worst.
The comment section of the National Post or the Globe or a reputable media outlet, I feel like is a safer space than online, where people are commenting on under pseudonyms and things like that. To me,
I have an email address that I publish. I don't get attacks.
Yeah, well, you know what? I'm glad for you, because it certainly is something that will create real trauma and difficulty. But I think that it's sort of the same notion that we're talking about. It's like these escalations, right? Like people have moved their commentary into different spaces, into social media and away from more traditional areas, so that they can get away with saying whatever they want and feeling less. Look, they know that Meta won't do anything about their comment, but the National Post might. right? The National Post might see
delete
this.
it right away, I guess.
Right. At the very least, they would get rid of it, whereas that comment will live on forever on Meta.
Yes.
You know?
And even if you block it, it only deletes it for the person that blocks it. I don't know if you know about that as well. So for example, if I report the comment to Meta, it deletes it for me, but other people can still see it.
Oh.
So yeah.
Doesn't that feel like an intentional thing they do to like get people to be like, all right, look, the comment's gone, and they move on and leave it alone, so they have fewer reports and follow-ups. I mean, they're so desperate to just get things off their desk and move along.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think it's more than ever important to address it. Like, I don't want anything else happening, you know, to the people, and this is the catalyst. Like, this is ground zero problem that we have to address.
Yeah.
I mean, bonding should be utilized right now because people are very conscious of it. This is the time to get government legislation through, to do the type of legislation that Miriam's advocating.
Yeah.
And this is the time right now.
I couldn't agree with you more, and I'm sure those that are listening feel the same way. And it's important, I think, like I said, that people really follow along your journey, right? Follow Miriam on Instagram, on social media, stay in touch with what's happening, because I might be wrong. I don't think you can do this, the two of you. I think that there's going to be a time through your actions and your efforts that require support from the community, whether it's inspiring Canadians to write to their local MP to push and to support whatever you're putting forward, or if it's about finding somebody who's listening who has a great relationship with the leader of the opposition or the leader of our government or anyone in power that would be willing to meet with you. There's a room for everyone in the community. So I would just say, follow Miriam on social media. All of her information will be available in the description of this video. Stay connected with the journey to understand how not only you can support, but I think also be inspired by you, Miriam, as somebody that is really, because I think that a lot of people, especially you talked before about young girls and young women, it's very intimidating when you've experienced harassment to then go back to that same space, right? So you talk about young women on campus who are students. We had a young girl who was followed around the grocery store, a few months ago as a result of being a vocal Zionist on her campus, and the person was sending her pictures and texting her intimidating messages while he was following her around. For that person, it would be reasonable to think they might crawl into their dorm room and not come back out until the end of the semester, because it's terrifying to walk around on campus and know they could be watching from anywhere and people are following and they know me, and you're as visible as it comes, right? Like, you're prominent on social media, you're in publications, you're on the cover of magazines, like, you're out there. And I just really commend you for your bravery, not just to speak up and to file the report with Uber and the police, but now that you're doing this, that you're coming to do, media, to speak to a large audience, to speak to newspapers. I mean, you're putting yourself in a, you had two options. You could protect yourself from more death threats and hate comments, or you could lean into it. And I think you really proved that you don't feel like a victim in all of this, which is really an inspiring message for not just young girls and women, but for everyone to hear. I'm a 32-year-old man, and I think I would really benefit from hearing that, because it's scary, But when you see that someone else can do it, it's a reminder that we can too. And I really appreciate that. Howard, Miriam, thank you both so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
It's my pleasure, and I'm thrilled to hear that the situation with Uber has resolved. And I would have loved to talk about it, obviously, but I'm glad that we don't have to. I'm glad that we don't have to. Is the beautiful thing, because as much as what we've talked about today is a series of loops not being closed and items not being followed up on and resolved, it's very nice to know that the catalyst of all of this is at least not in that category, and that there has been a settlement and a resolution there. Yes. Best of luck with everything, because I know that if you succeed, we succeed. If your work is effective, it benefits all of us. So thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you so much for having me.
Our pleasure.
It's a pleasure.
Thanks, Howard.
Thank you.
And for all of you listening, thank you for joining us as well. We'll be back in another couple of weeks with another great episode of Breaking the Narrative, although it may be a little bit longer than that because of the holidays that are coming up. So in the meantime, if you're bored and looking for more content, as always, just take a look through our YouTube page. We have a number of fantastic interviews for you to watch, enjoy, and most importantly, learn from. I'm Jesse Primoreno, wishing everyone a happy Hanukkah, although it's already passed, a happy New Year, and all of our best for 2026.